the Around the NFL podcast. Coming soon to a theater near you.
In London is right. The O2 Forum, Thursday night. From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. The flagship program, Sunday, Week 3 recap. Dan Hanzus here. Gregg Rosenthal. Marc Sessler. Marc, I can hear it. You got a little bounce in your step. After the show today, we're going to be on the plane heading over the pond. You're buzzing.
International flights offer certain advantages. That's all I'll say.
Yes. We're going to have to keep an eye on Marc.
Although, actually, you and I, we all have a lot of insane work to do on the plane, so we're going to keep it under wraps.
Well,
we're company men.
You've now said what you plan to do.
Right. My biggest benefit is that it inspired a new song by Dan Hanzus. I hope you could share it with the listeners.
I don't even remember what it is. That's just part of the pre-show banter.
Okay.
Probably something about sadness, I would
It
say.
was about Dan being on the plane, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Daniel
song,
is flying tonight on the plane.
Which you've
I
now
can see
adopted
the red
as
tail of lights. Ba 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 ba. Yeah,
in your
who cares
world.
about you going?
I'm
going to
in your
England.
worldview, that song, which is decades and decades old, was a prophetic song about you taking this flight tonight.
I think it's built to this moment.
That's the problem with you.
Is it?
It's
Maybe it's what makes me great.
Okay.
Let's get
Point of
to
view.
it. It's the Sunday flagship show, and it really got off to on a great foot about an hour ago. The way things are set up in our office, we watch everything in the newsroom together, and our screens are a little behind, so sometimes we need to roll over to where the bullpen is, where Dave Ely and Burgo and everybody else is hanging out to watch the game so it doesn't get spoiled. The real time of these
Plus,
plays
you can watch
happen.
all 4 games at once.
It's great. So we roll over. Greggy rolls over. And just this was a reminder, Gregg, that even the heroes let us down sometimes. Gregg had Tom Brady driving on one screen, Geno Smith driving on the other. Both of their teams lost. And you should have seen it was basically one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
I mean, I've never seen Dan happier. I've never seen him so just like
Daniel
filled
is
with
flying
glee.
tonight on the plane.
Glee inside to see a friend of his in pain. 2 greats of the game going down just minutes apart, Geno Smith and Tom Brady. It was tough.
We'll get to those. And, again, Gregg, a total pro because he was expecting – you went through it for so long, Greggy. Always good things happening to your football life. And now the reality of fandom is setting in, and you're learning it's a little bittersweet.
It's a real adult.
We're going to get to those games. But first, let's start in scorching South Florida.
2nd and 20. 18 seconds left. Allen. He goes down. He gets back up and tosses it to McKenzie, who's trying to get to the sideline. Has to cut it back in and is tackled in bounds with 7 seconds left. Ingram the tackle.
Go! Clock it!
2, 1.
Clock it!
Get it done! It's over!
You did not clock it!
Miami wins it 21-19.
Whoa! Jimmy Cephalo. You know, I talked about it last week with that great Jets one when Bob was choosing. You never get to hear Bob was choosing on an exciting call. Great play-by-play man. Cephalo, since we've been doing the show, when do you hear Cephalo on a big call? You know, you had that miracle with Gronk that one game, but
Once every 3 months.
No, that's not true.
Once every 3 years.
Now you're getting closer. But this is real time. Thank you, Marc. You're gumming up the show already. Jimmy Cephalo with the call. The Miami Dolphins stop Josh Allen and the Bills at the goal line. Then, after a butt punt, they stopped him again, or at least held him in bounds, and then got the clock to run out on an absurd 21-19 win over the previously unstoppable Buffalo Bills. Marc, despite what you said, football hasn't been this exciting around the Dolphins in a long time. And the fact that you were able to get a win over the mighty Bills here at 3-0, Miami football is flying high.
Yeah, I think the narrative coming into this was, how will Buffalo's secondary handle what Miami did to the Ravens last week with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle? That wasn't really the story of this game. I think that Buffalo's offense, which broke the Rams, broke the Titans very quickly, looked unstoppable. They had increasing breakdown, meltdown scenarios in this game. And I would talk about 4 different plays and they got increasingly worse. It obviously ended with that inability to spike the ball and stop the clock. But earlier in the game, they had a drive that ended at the Miami 20, and then they went ahead and missed a field goal. That's un-Buffalo-like so far. They had a 20-play drive that really, to me, I thought they could have said, we're going to reestablish the tone in this game. It fizzled out into a field goal. You've lost 3 points, and I really think that should have been a touchdown. That happened at the Miami 11 that melted down. Then the drive before that final clock issue scenario, 4th and goal, Josh Allen, who's been perfect this season, rolls out, throws a completely bizarre on-the-run, off-target, short ball to Isaiah McKenzie, who was just sort of sitting there in the end zone with his hands out like he was going to catch a baby or something coming off a burning building. And the baby landed well short of Isaiah McKenzie's hands. And
Talking dead babies on the podcast?
The baby did not, Buffalo, it lived because the Buffalo had one more chance. And then time ran out on that 4th scenario right there. So that's
wait, so now the baby's dead.
Well, like the Patriots do with their injuries, I'm not going to give you the status of the baby.
Now we're gumming up your monologue.
Well, that's not a new thing.
You could tell because he's so excited.
That is not a new thing.
He's going to be extra spicy today.
No, but I mean, that to me was the story of the game. And I think this Miami defense, where they kept the coordinator, they kept the system that was so smart for Mike McDaniel to handle it that way, the team to handle it that way. Their secondary grew hotter and hotter as the game went on, and they made Buffalo look human.
Well, it sounded like the conditions were a huge factor. A lot of the Bills players said as much.
They were dying.
McKenzie
oh my goodness.
Got an IV at one point. But it's partly because their offense was tired. They had 90 plays in this game, and the Dolphins had 39. You almost never see a gap like that. That's outrageous. They had 497 yards in this game, Mark, and the Dolphins had 212. You give me those two stats, and you would say, and I'm sure like the DVOA will run the numbers, and Dolphins fans will be upset because we're not giving them their flowers. We should get to giving them some flowers. But you look at those numbers, and I'm sure some of the advanced analytics will run the numbers of this, and they would say you would expect a score of like 33-16 Bills. So like you're telling me about those key plays, but like how did the Dolphins get this done offensively that efficiently? Because it doesn't like to put 21 points up sounds pretty
minutes.
Good. It's crazy.
Well,
19 minutes.
Right, so one of their touchdowns was off of Josh Allen, was off a fumble, and they had a 6-yard touchdown drive.
Okay,
that
took advantage.
They did have a legit 9-yard, 83-yard touchdown drive, but it wasn't coming through. The big plays that were there in the past were not in this game. That was not the case. Then they had one where they took over at their old 28 and had a regular touchdown drive. So they had 2 efficient drives, but one was a difference maker that was a Buffalo turnover deep in their own territory.
And, Dolphins fans, I just mentioned here, and they've been looking for the respect. Here's the respect. Like, the fans in this game were reportedly like a huge factor. Like, both players, but especially the Dolphins players, where they haven't heard Hard Rock Stadium this rocking and this loud in a long time. And I thought it was telling on that final play, the Dolphins didn't send any extra rushers. That Jalen Phillips and Melvin Ingram won immediately. And that's why they ended up winning the game on that play. At that point, I still thought that they were going to set up for the Tyler Bass game winner. And Agba won immediately. So those 3 rushers up front beat the Bills' offensive line, which has more injury issues. And that's the key play of the game.
It's interesting seeing the throw. One of the plays you mentioned there, Mark, that when he did Josh Allen throw that ball short, it just reminds you that these guys are human. And in these conditions, I'm really excited to see the rematch of this game. I think the Bills, to me, are still the best team in the division, but this is what it is. I mean, they are now 3-0. They're the only 3-0 team in the AFC now, the Miami Dolphins. So this is as big as it gets. This is a huge win. And, yeah, part of the Miami Dolphins experience is where they play their games, especially this time of year. That's an advantage. And their players, they practice in that through the spring and summer, and that was a built-in advantage in this game that they took advantage of, and they were able to keep that. That game came very close.
Can I mention one other play that
Yes.
I know Bills fans are wondering why we haven't mentioned? That Matt Milano had a pick 6 against the Titans. Tua threw a terrible ball. It landed right into the midst of Matt Milano, who dropped it. There are just these. It's one of these games where I think if you're a Bills fan, where you look so dominant, you could count 10 or 11 little plays that changed this thing entirely and put, I think, a lesser performance by Miami's offense. It was enough because of Buffalo's mistakes.
You know what, though? They've been bad in short yardage all 3 weeks. And they were bad in short yardage a year ago. So that's something they have to clean up and was a big part, I think, of why they lost this game.
And if you want a visual for the frustration of the Buffalo Bills experience, look no further than one of the great all-time, I think the all-time booth shot for a coordinator group, Ken Dorsey, the OC, having a total conniption after time ran out in that game. Very frustrating defeat for the Buffalo Bills, who are going to be okay. Was that at the end? You see a hand come in
My
and block the
favorite part
camera.
is the hand comes in, I think, from another member of the Bills staff who realized, this is making Ken look bad.
Yeah.
Let's save
Oh,
Ken.
It makes him look good, I think, because he cares.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a little
sure
bit
he's
of
not
both.
thrilled about it. But you know what happened was he's doing that. He's having the conniption. The dude next to him looks up and sees the CBS monitor playing the conniption.
Right.
He's like, no.
Probably like a PR guy.
All right, so there you go. The Dolphins are 3-0. The Bills 2-1.
Tua looked okay, by the way, after the back injury.
So,
I just
yeah,
was curious.
so
was it a head injury or a back
Ian
injury?
mentioned it looked like it was head, and then Ian tweeted out that his understanding was that that he had tweaked his back in the first quarter on a sneak and didn't miss time. But it's hard to say he looked great. It just wasn't a great day for Tua or a terrible day.
But was it a head injury? Labeled as a back injury.
It was the other way. It was the other way around.
It was.
It was a head injury,
But I'm saying, was it something, let's call it a back injury so we don't have to worry about certain elements of keeping our quarterback in the game. Did you sense any of that as someone who hasn't watched it yet?
I thought I did not see back injury out of the gate, but I'm not one of these people that prance around acting like I can diagnose what's happening to a player physically.
I hate when I see people prancing around, like skipping through the streets.
It's like the
That's an elbow sprain.
The Twitter doctors love to prance.
Yeah. All right, let's move. Oh, no.
See,
Who did it?
There was some collateral damage here.
Who locked the Bills?
The Wesleyan.
5 people.
Yes, it was the Wesseling brothers locked the Bills. And they, Nick's video made him seem like he was going to go with the Dolphins. He was like, the Dolphins are hot, they're at home. But then they pivoted for the Bills.
Do they have a win yet?
They did get a win week
they
1.
did. Okay. Cincinnati Zoo falls. Let's move on to, so the Bills, superpower in the AFC. They go down. How about the Chiefs? They got the winless Colts up in week 3. They're going to roll, right?
Play clock is at 10. Waiting on the snap. Takes it. Looking left. He's going to fire upfield. It's broken up. Tipped and intercepted by the Colts. Intercepted by the Colts. It's Rodney McLeod. Colts have it. Interception. 2 seconds left, and the Colts are going to win.
Oh, Matt Taylor, WFNY. After Matt Ryan connected with Jelani Woods for the second time, 12-yard touchdown pass with 24 seconds left. Rodney McLeod gets the INT with just 2 seconds remaining. It capped a upset win for the Colts, who knock off the Chiefs 20-17. The Colts improved to 1-1-1. That's kind of fun. The Chiefs fall to 2-1. Greggy, what's going on with the Chiefs offense here? That's something I wanted to talk, because I looked at the box score. They had 3 points in the second half. Both their touchdowns came off turnovers where they had a short field. Are we back in this place again where we're worried about KC's offense?
A little bit, yes. Over the last 2 weeks, if you look at their yards per play, it's under 5.5, and that's why I wanted to lead with that play by Stephon Gilmore making the tip. Gilmore made some good plays on third down early, covering Travis Kelce. Their defense kept them in this game when Matt Ryan and the offense really struggled, other than they picked up a 1 TD where they got the ball at the 5-yard line, and then they had this last drive, which we can get to. But the Colts defense, on the other hand, made them feel ordinary for much of the day. And I didn't feel like Patrick Mahomes played bad. But then I thought, they only had 9 drives in this game, and there was a lot of punts. And I thought at the end of the game it was going to be a repeat of the AFC Championship game when instead of 14 seconds, it was 24 seconds. And they were getting into field goal position, and Juju Smith-Schuster, at least according to Tony Romo, and this is why you draft Tony Romo first overall, he really believed that last interception was on Juju Smith-Schuster faking out Patrick Mahomes, not sort of reading the coverage or reading what was happening on the blitz right, and you could see Mahomes double pump and then force it into it, and Juju kind of fooled Mahomes Mahomes on that play, and they are working out some kinks offensively.
And that is the reminder. While Tyreek Hill is 3-0 and thriving in Miami, despite the Week 1 destruction of Arizona, we're seeing a Chiefs team that very much looks like it's trying to figure out itself on offense. Here's what Mahomes had to say after the game about their offensive struggles.
We just didn't play good enough, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Starting with me, obviously we missed some kicks and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we had multiple opportunities to score. So I mean, we got to find ways to get the ball in the end zone, and that starts with me. You can't just get yards. We got to be able to get in the end zone when we're down there.
I mean, they are hurt at the kicker position. Because you had Matt Amendola, who missed an extra point, missed a field goal. And you saw, if you're watching the game, Mahomes before the half was very frustrated and actually sort of jawing with Eric Bieniemy about the fact that they didn't have a lot of time, but they didn't really go for a touchdown at that point. It would have been tough to do, but I think it was more the idea that, like, what are we doing kind of hanging back? We're in a game where we're trying to work out some issues. Because flip side, this is great for the Colts. I mean, their season would have been in total turmoil. But long term, I'm watching Matt Ryan, and he when he's got time, he's Matt Ryan. But another 5 sacks today, another fumble. It's
2 fumbles.
Yeah, he seems just to be a sitting duck back there. And a long term, that's a major concern for the Colts.
Greg, is it fair to say it's kind of a miracle win for them? Because
I can't believe they won this
look,
game.
they got Pittman back, and he obviously played a role in this. But Jonathan Taylor is held under 3.5 yards a carry. The quarterback loses 2 fumbles. The Chiefs are your opponent, and somehow you kind of steal a win. That's huge for the Colts.
It is, because you never know how these seasons shake out. These teams will be different in December than they are now, and the fact that they could bank a win like this when they average under 4 yards per play on offense, I mean, they were just lost in terms of what they wanted to do offensively. And on that game-winning touchdown drive, and that was a beautiful touchdown throw and a nice catch by Jelani Woods. He had 2 catches today, both touchdowns, and that drive ended up taking up 8 minutes. Each team really only had 3 full drives in the second half, so it was one of those types of games. And it took 8 minutes in part, 16 plays, 76 yards, because on 4th and 14, Chris Jones, the Chiefs defensive tackle, got a penalty just for something he said to Matt Ryan. I would love to know what he said.
And the ref was right there and heard it. Otherwise it wouldn't have happened either.
He was on top of Matt Ryan, and he stayed a little extra and kind of looked down on him, but they didn't throw the penalty for that. They both got up, and Ryan said something, and Jones got in his face, said something back, and at that point it comes out, and that ends up being the game-winning drive. So there was like a million things that went against the Chiefs that I think were somewhat lucky for the Colts. They also went for a fake field goal, Dan, because they had already missed 4 points from their kicker, Amendola.
That's like in blackjack, you start just digging in.
Yeah.
Get deeper and deeper into the hole when you start
Why
trying
not
to
stick
catch
Justin
points.
Reed in there? Maybe he can save the day.
He could have been better, but
good call.
All
Get
that
Reed
said,
back
like
in
the
there.
normal Chiefs offense would have put the game out of reach before then, and they didn't.
But what is the normal Chiefs offense? I guess we still don't know yet.
Okay.
We watch week 1 and we're like, oh, we do know what it is.
Yeah, well,
But
that
now
was the
3
Cardinals
weeks
defense.
In,
And Mahomes put it on himself. I thought Mahomes played quite well for the most part. Their running backs had 29 yards on 17 carries.
Well, we watched Mahomes with that 1 2-point conversion, which was vintage Mahomes.
He had an insane 2-point conversion. He had insane sidearm to keep a drive going. He needs a little more help right now.
All right, so Patrick Mahomes went down, but Tom Brady. Tom Brady is at home. Tom Brady will take care of business. Aaron Rodgers, he can't touch Tom Brady, right? Let's check in at the pirate ship.
Snap to Brady. Brady looking, waiting, scrambles, right, throws, end zone, tipped up into the air. It is incomplete. Over. It is incomplete. Devondre Campbell tipped it up into the air in the right side of the end zone. And there is your dagger. The Packers defense finally gets the stop.
That is Wayne Larrivee with the call, WRNW. Aaron Rodgers threw for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. But it was the Packers defense that got that stop. After Tom Brady threw a beautiful, it was really a great catch by Russell Gage, but a 90-yard drive with 14 seconds remaining, cutting it to 14-12. They go for 2. They cannot convert. So the Bucs fall. They lose for the first time this season, and the Packers, another team like the Chiefs, trying to figure some things out, Greg, on offense. They scored just enough to get by the powerhouse Bucs.
There's so many similarities with these two teams because their quarterbacks don't look quite like they were because they don't have the receivers. You made it, out before as you're leading into this game like it was some like heroic underdog matchup that the Packers could win a game when old Tommy doesn't have his number 1 receiver, Mike Evans doesn't have his number 2 receiver, Chris Godwin doesn't have his number 3 receiver, Julio Jones doesn't have his left tackle, Donovan Smith doesn't have his center, and at the end I thought it was going to be like one of those magical Tom Brady moments, and I was crushed because of that, because it just was feeling like one of those Patriots games where they somehow stayed in it, because the Bucs defense, to me, is right there with the best defense in the league so far this season. I might put them number 1. And they did a great job keeping this game close. And he drives down the field, and then it's a delay of game that ends up beating them. I know Devondre Campbell made the great play on the 2, but at that point, I felt like Tom Brady and the Bucs offense had lost that game because of sloppiness. He took a delay of game that backed him up to the 7, and then he's like looking for Todd Bowles. He's like, how come you didn't take a timeout? You didn't have any timeouts, Tom Brady? And it was just like,
after that delay of game, Marc turned to me because he had joined us in the bullpen at that point and said, hey, listen, you know what? Actually backs them up and lets them do their offense a little better. I think that's going to be better.
No, first of all, that is how I speak in the newsroom. Just to clarify,
they were going to run it though. They even started to run
Marc
the play.
Marc didn't say that, but I told Marc that's the kind of announcer trope when that happens. Oh, this actually gives them more to operate. They can operate,
which is absurd.
Now. It was also telling
they can operate.
They called the run though for Lenny Fournette on the original 2-point conversion, which I think tells you about the relative lack of confidence in Perriman, and Gage had a better day, and Jalen Dart and Cole Beasley. And
they're a tough watch right now.
They
Bucs,
are.
Marc.
I mean, their plan is not. Their plan was never, let's throw 13 balls at Russell Gage. He's a nice piece who should have been getting, the third receiver treatment. Then you've got Cam Brate getting 6 targets. Leonard Fournette, 5 catches off of 6. These are who you're throwing to.
He had 42 attempts, and they only ran it with the running backs 12
times. That's not the plan. I mean, Leonard Fournette, 35 yards on the ground. So, I mean, I'm with you. I think they're one of the more dull offenses to watch, but it's not their fault. They're missing like 5 or 6 people they plan to be able to
survive until the cavalry comes home. It opens up the playbook a little bit.
Evans will be back next week. He was suspended. We don't know about Godwin or Julio. But the Packers
defense.
What
is up with Julio Jones? What happened? What is this injury
now? Is this so unexpected at this point? I think we've come to learn this is the world.
Yeah.
Then week 1 already feels like it happened about 10 years ago with some of the things we were talking about in this
very
report
studio. It's a worse knee injury than expected. I think Jay Glazer had it as a torn PCL or something.
No. That's what
Cole
killed Zeke last year.
Made a catch today, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Cole Beasley, comes in out of Tom Brady's DMs.
Get his ass.
He literally was like DMing Tom Brady and got himself signed. I thought they might use him a lot. There was a report he made a diving catch to keep the first drive going, but he was not.
How does everyone have Tom Brady's number? Like they don't have their careers didn't intersect.
I think it was Instagram.
Right.
I guess they follow each other. Packers defense deserves credit for holding up without Jair Alexander. That's a big loss for them. They did get Bakhtiari back in this game finally.
But he did not play the whole. Was he in and out of the lineup? There was a series I saw him on the bench.
I think he was mostly in there, but I think they tried to limit some of his snaps, but he played the majority of it, and he looked good. The first 2 drives, even though that Todd Bowles recovered, the first 2 drives were like kind of Aaron Rodgers in his aging, end of his era period, like at his absolute best. He was like out coaching Bowles personally on all these third downs where he knew exactly what was coming.
The magic number here, before we move on, we're going to take a break, that you would have never guessed, although we kind of were on this a little bit going into the game because it felt too early, and with all the injuries and the Packers trying to figure themselves out, this just felt like too early for this game. 600 is the magic number. That is the total yards between the two teams, 315, 285. I want to see these guys play again in January.
I know.
We knew this was not going to be some high-octane showdown, though. We knew
just
that.
Kind of a bummer.
I also like that the Brady-Rodgers sort of like meet in the middle of the field was,
Little man.
It was about as cold as it could be.
Did you see the Josh Allen Tua meet in the middle of the field? It was like they had just played the most epic Super Bowl game. I think they were just totally exhausted.
It was like Federer and Nadal on Friday night, just like crying on each other's shoulders.
I know who they are. I know one of them's retiring.
Familiar with them.
It was emotional, I imagine.
Yeah.
2 warriors of the clay. I don't know.
I think this is a good sign for the Bucs, by the way. They'll be back, and a good sign that Romeo Doubs looks like a real ball player there. They got something.
He's a good player.
8 targets, 8 catches.
All right, let's take a break, and then we continue on with the flagship show. All right, we're back. Let's head next to the house that Bobby Kraft built.
Jackson out of the gun on 3rd and 1. Takes the handoff. Lamar will keep it. He's got room. He's to the 5. He walks in. Touchdown! Lamar Jackson with a knockout shot. On 3rd and 1, Lamar sends them flying for the exits in Foxborough.
I don't know, actually. I don't know if there was taxpayer subsidies involved there, if it was all privately funded by the owner.
We don't know, right?
That was about 20 years ago.
Sure.
I think you
Probably
got a
could
little,
research
little
that.
help, maybe.
Lamar Jackson threw 4 touchdown passes, also ran for a touchdown. This guy's out of his mind right now. That was Jerry Sandusky, by the way, WBAL. And the Baltimore Ravens shook off that bad beat last week to the Dolphins with a win over another AFC East foe, the Patriots, 37-26. And now we welcome in a friend of the show. And just imagine, because now he's getting ready for his marriage.
Right.
The revenge body against any remaining body fat he might have. Imagine Shook's body on his wedding night. I'll just leave it there. What's up, Nick?
Weird.
Well,
No, I think it's apt.
Well, you put me in a strange position where now I'm imagining that, and let's just leave it there.
We've thrown you off your axis just a bit.
Shooky, and by the way, Nick Shook, because we're going to be traveling to London town tonight, Shook's taking us home and closing out the podcast with a little Sunday night football discussion. So thank you for that, Shook. Lamar Jackson, totally out of his mind. Today he became the first player in the Super Bowl era, this according to the AP, with 3 or more passing touchdowns and 100-plus rushing yards in back-to-back games. He is unconscious. And the New England Patriots, who are not a bad defense, like everybody else, have no answers right now with Jackson.
No answers whatsoever. They got him to throw an interception, and still that wasn't enough. They got one of his teammates to fumble, and it still wasn't enough. And especially in that final moment there where the Ravens do get the ball back and Lamar puts it on his shoulders, goes right down the field, a couple of long completions, runs it in himself. As they said, the knockout blow in a game that the Patriots had every chance to come back and win in. Credit to the defense, of course, but Lamar is the headline with 5 total touchdowns. And, this is what I wrote in the What We Learned is every time he has a game like this, his price just increases. He just kind of punctuates how important he is to this franchise. And the credit really, and I know you guys have all noticed this through 3 weeks now, is the fact that, Greg Roman has gotten so much, criticism for their offense is predictable. They can only run the option with him. They still can't throw the football. They have answered those questions this season, thanks in large part to the development of Rashad Bateman. Devin Duvernay had a day today. We know what Marc Andrews brings to the table, and Lamar delivering the ball to all of them. Marc Andrews made an incredible touchdown catch in this game over a defender. I think he had less than a yard of separation. He was basically the defender was in his lap when he caught the touchdown pass, but it's all thanks to Lamar being able to get the ball to him and his unpredictability. He can make, guys miss. Even in the pocket, he avoided getting sacked by 2 rushers, Josh Uch and Matthew Judon, both coming in at the same time. Neither could get him. He extended the play, gets a first down, did that on a few occasions today. Not only keeps their offense afloat, but also allows them to explode for points at times. I mean, they put 37 points on the board today. It didn't even really feel like that many points. And yet this is who Baltimore is. So, I mean, he's fantastic.
As long as you have this version, this healthy version of Lamar who's thriving in the passing game, obviously confident in his legs, he's a cheat code. Here's John Harbaugh, who understands what he has and probably is nervous about what could happen after this season because they don't have him under contract.
You know what has to tell me about Lamar Jackson. I believe in him. I love him. I just believed him the first day we drafted him.
I kind of like that, Greggy, because it's like, hey, remember, Lamar, we believed in you before anybody else.
I mean,
give us a discount.
He's not going
not sure
anywhere.
That's going to matter.
Yes, he's not going anywhere. They can franchise that. He's not going anywhere. And you're right, Nick, that the price goes up, but that's a great problem for them to have. It's the best version of Lamar Jackson we've ever seen. As someone who at times almost felt like I was defending Lamar's play from the pocket during his MVP season, it's still okay to acknowledge that he's at another level right now as a passer and as a decision maker. He knows when to run, when not to run. I mean, the speed's still there. When they run QB power, he just goes. But I watched this game pretty closely too, and it honestly didn't feel like the Patriots were playing bad defense. They were getting beat by perfect plays that they were in position for. That just like, what can you do other than like tip their hat to the throw to the corner of the end zone? Who was that to? Duvernay was just like outrageous.
It was outrageous. Duvernay with great job getting his feet in bounds. But you talk about perfect plays. The perfect play to me was pulling a page out of Kansas City's playbook. The little shovel pass to Marc Andrews along the goal line for an early touchdown. Andrews almost dropped the ball, hangs on and gets in the end zone. That's the stuff that they can do now, that it can hit you from all angles. It does not matter what situation they're in. Lamar is able to capitalize on that. And you're right. You're defending his pocket performance and everything. His MVP season, he was spectacular. But like you said, he's better now than he was then. Does he make a few mistakes here and there? Yeah, of course. But the total picture, the total package, which you get, heavily outweighs that. And if they can put it all together on a week-by-week basis, this is why a lot of people had them win in the North. I mean, they look strong.
I also thought this was the best game we'd seen from Mac Jones. And we just watched on the YouTube feed that he was obviously heavily limping at one point and was in agony after that game. We're waiting to find out what that injury was. That could essentially be their season. But if let's say he gets healthy again, did you think that Mac Jones played his best game of the year so far?
I mean, the bar's kind of low because they've been off to a slow start offensively through 2 games. I don't think it was a great game, but it was good enough to win. Mac also kind of sunk them. He threw a pretty bad interception on a desperation heave in the back of the end zone in the fourth quarter that had no chance. It was a prayer. And it wasn't his fault, of course, that Nelson Aguilar fumbled. That should have been a nice catch and run that could have got them in position again. So it wasn't terrible. It wasn't a spectacular game.
He led the NFL in completion percentage over expected today. I thought he had some dimes. I thought it was an encouraging game.
Yeah. Him and Devontae.
For them to put up 450 yards of offense is encouraging. You can't have the turnovers, but it was like a close game. You had Aguilar, as you mentioned, running in Ravens territory, down 5 points with about 5 minutes to go. It wasn't like it was a one-sided game. But if he's out, and there's some Twitter doctors believing while they're prancing around that it might be a high ankle sprain, who knows? It might be worse.
Developing news from Mike Giardi, our reporter. The Patriots fear, and there is speculation still here, but this is Giardi, and we like Giardi. Patriots fear that Mac Jones suffered tendon and or ligament damage. That doesn't show on X-rays, so that there's still, but their fear, and as he's screaming, going down those very same steps that Tom Brady once went down after blowing out his ACL in the 08 opener, you have very huge concerns here, Shooky, about the Pats, because if they don't have Mac Jones, like, who is their backup?
Brian Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer. Oh my goodness.
Season
Brian
over.
Hoyer. I know he kind of looks like you, Shook, so that's personally he's got a Browns tie, but like that is not a good look. That's the recipe for 5-12.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you get with him. It's a low ceiling. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes, but he's not going to elevate you in any
Just
degree.
imagine him on
kind
his
of a bummer.
wedding night, Shooky. Brian Hoyer.
Why should we?
I would rather not. But I just want to say this. Devontae
Just
Parker had his
imagine
first
Brian
breakout
Hoyer
game
there
as
on
a
your
Patriot.
wedding night.
Well, now
how about
it's
he
getting-
just storms in?
Now it's getting more uncomfortable.
Might as well
is
show
my
draft
fault.
day at the wedding.
All right,
Sorry, Shooky.
let's move on. Oh, yes, Mr. Sessler, Lock Brothers Inc. Once again, and the great Lock It Up, ATN Lock It Up on Twitter, let us know with an excellent NES throwback cover for a hypothetical video game in which we lock games.
The
properly.
Lock Bros.
The Lock Bros. We are now 11-2 when we tag team a lock, so that's something to keep in mind.
I had suggested after week 1 when Dan and I did this, Shook, that we locked up a team and we won. I was like, let's do this every week. It's like, no, it's not. But actually, that's a great idea because we're dominant when we team up.
But it's got to be the right. I think we've showed when we are both aligned, it's almost always right.
Right. I just picked blindly,
Yeah.
and then you seem to do the same. So,
I have a trophy that says otherwise. All right, Chuck, let's move on
well, so do I.
to Carolina.
Mayfield in the shotgun. Pumps. He's got Laviska Shenault. His first catch is a Panther. He's got the 40.
Make a miss.
50.
Make a
Shenault
guy miss.
off to the races.
Make two miss.
Skies in front. Green grass ahead. Touchdown. Laviska Shenault. Welcome to Carolina.
Wow. Didn't see that coming. And this Schroff of WBT with the call. That is Laviska Shenault, who was acquired in a late training camp trade, inactive the first couple games. Now he gets a big opportunity and makes the most of it with a 67-yard touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield in the fourth quarter. And it is the Carolina Panthers that defeat the New Orleans Saints 22-14. It snaps a 9-game losing streak for Matt Rule's team. Maybe my pep talk on the Friday Fun Show had an effect. I like to think so. Shooky, Baker only threw for 170, but with the way I guess New Orleans is playing offensively, he needs to make a ton of plays right now.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a hater, but that throw that we just showed was Baker's best throw of the day, and he had to throw it about 15 yards to the flat, and Laviska Shenault did the rest of the work. I mean, it's still an offense that is struggling. Christian McCaffrey broke 100 yards on the ground again, but they got the win, and that's the most important thing. And a lot of it has to do with the Panthers defense, which gave up a ton of yards but did not break. They bent a lot, but they did not break. And they made some key plays. One of my favorite guys in this team for the last few years, Frankie Luvu, with a nice strip of Alvin Kamara early in that game.
Frankie!
And they returned that. Hey, Frankie.
Hey, back him up 5 yards,
Yeah,
get more
exactly.
space, open up your playbook, you can run something else.
Hey, who needs Baker Mayfield when you got Frankie Louisville over there? Hey, Uncle Tony, what do you think about Frankie? But yeah, this defense, the Snow Patrol, Greg, this is your group, the Snow Patrol. They made their first appearance this season. They got a takeaway, and that was enough because the Saints offense can't get out of its own way. Jameis finally connected with Chris Olave once. It felt like a holiday because he missed him about 4 more times. This offense is struggling for New Orleans right now, and it's a surprise they even got 14 points.
Yeah, I'm reading here that Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Traquan Smith all leave with injuries in the second half. Anything serious there potentially?
Thomas was left with a foot. Jarvis, I don't think returned. He got hurt pretty early. Traquan Smith came in because Jarvis was hurt and ended up making a difference, but none of it mattered. I think we'll have to stay tuned.
And they're
on all those
heading to
updates,
London, that is not a good sign. Like their offense should be much better this year because they have all these receivers, but it hasn't been through three games.
Well, I don't think you have a healthy quarterback either.
Right, and I think there's questions there. This is a very interesting time, I think, for the Saints heading over to London to play Minnesota. We'll be there at that game, and I just get the sense there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of pressure on this group because they kept everyone together, and I'm just keeping an eye out for drama with this Saints team. I'm just keeping an eye out. That's all.
We're going to be
you want a drama nugget?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear some drama nugs.
Notice today, first sideline shot of Andy Dalton.
Well, look, I think he maybe should be playing in this game. Jameis has fractures in his back.
But that's more like a nugget of, the Fox announcers keying in on a potential storyline. You're not saying, was there a shot of like Andy Dalton looking suspicious or looking like an eye roll after a Jameis Winston pass sailed over a receiver's head? Anything like that. That's what we're looking for.
Andy Dalton only has one expression, stoic. And
those eyebrows,
on the field too.
The ginger man's eyebrows, they are very expressive.
I'm not sure that was a nugget, but we'll note it. We'll note it.
It's noted.
It's a crumb.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah, think about with the Saints, by the way. They have a near miraculous win against the Falcons in week 1. They are that close to 0-3 right now. So, Greg, you're right. And when you have a banged-up team now, including a quarterback reportedly playing with 4 fractures in his back, enjoy the 10-hour plane ride and the strange week to come in London and the out of your sorts unique prep week to come. This is a tough spot for them. Woo-wee. Their opponent feeling good? Shooky, we're feeling good about you closing out the show. So thank you. We'll say goodbye for now, and then you'll rejoin the audience and a little fireside chat with the great Nick Shook.
Yeah, come into my office. We'll chat, and they'll be on a plane. Safe travels, guys.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Shook.
All right, there goes Nick Shook, always a pro. Speaking of the Vikings, the opponent of the Saints in London, they're feeling good.
Cousins out of the shotgun with no timeouts, trailing 24-21. Takes the snap, straight drop. He's going to fire right. Yes! K.J. Osborne! You're so cold-blooded! Touchdown! And the Vikings have taken a 27-24 lead.
And this place has woken up.
Paul Allen and Pete Bursich, KFA, and the Bongo we just named.
Yeah,
the Lions team of ATL.
Read the room, Graver. Read the room.
This is not a celebration.
You want us to celebrate?
It was a great back and forth game.
Oh, no.
That's not how this works,
I
Greg.
don't think we could put you on the plane after this.
Okay.
Well, but he's traveling with
Our equipment.
Yeah.
His other significant other.
Jessica.
So she needs.
She can do my job in London.
No, Mark's angling to spend time with your.
That is inaccurate. She is a very nice person, but it's
Just take the L here, Graver. Take this L. Eat it.
The Minnesota Vikings come back on the Detroit Lions, the team of ATL. KJ Osborne with that go-ahead 28-yard touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins. with 45 seconds to play. And it was a tough one, boys. You know, I was watching this with my brother, Kevin Danger, Hanzus today, and they have it. They have it. They're up 24-14 in the second half in this game. They get a huge stop. Minnesota turned the ball over on downs at its 47 with 2:32 to go.
Wow.
And Detroit takes over. They get in position where Dan Campbell has an option with about 70 seconds left in regulation. Go for it, punt the ball away, play defense and hold off, or try a 54-yard field goal from Austin Seibert. That's what he goes with. He pushes it wide right, gives the Vikings a short field, and Kirk Cousins does the rest. After the game, this is what Dan Campbell had to say. He took some ownership here.
I regret that decision 100%. I really do, Dave. I hate it, and I do feel like I cost our team. I really do, man.
And that's great. And being accountable as a head coach is very important. But it is, once again, another reminder with the Lions, and they're a fun watch. Not as fun today when they lose their top wide receiver, their top running back to injuries. But they haven't figured out really how to win yet. And this happened last year, but they were more talent poor last year. They're still learning how to win games, and they let this one get away. They should not have lost this game. It's going to be a tough one to swallow, especially if they are what we think, Marc, which is a team that could be frisky and hanging around in December in the playoff race. Well, now another team that could be in that wild card race has a big tiebreaker.
Oh.
Well, they are frisky.
Right.
Like, I mean, they would have been nice to pull this out because it's a division game, and it would have confirmed the fact that, again, they ran the ball really well. I just think they've got weapons that people wouldn't have expected in the passing game. I mean, we knew St. Brown was good, but Josh Reynolds had 6 catches for 96. I don't know if you need or want Jared Goff to be throwing the ball 41 times, but I don't think Goff, who I think gets typically kind of just slammed and panned by people, I think he's been playing pretty well. No, I don't think you have, but I'm just
you guys
he's been playing pretty well.
He's playing fine.
I've killed Goff for years.
Well, do you want to know in part the reason why he's throwing the ball a lot? They had the ball a lot in this game. They ran a ton of plays, but also DeAndre Swift he has a recurring issue here. Is it a foot or an ankle?
I think he has an ankle injury, but now he also has a shoulder injury on top of that.
So he's banged up, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is hurt in this game, and he's banged up. And you saw when you take those two guys out of a primary role in the offense, they kind of came down to earth, and that's going to affect Jared Goff because, like we've said with Goff, if he has these weapons and the offensive line is protecting him, he could absolutely light up a defense.
Right.
But they were definitely hurt by the injuries. And to credit the Vikings, that was a game that was slipping away. It looked like it was over after that midfield turnover. And they showed some gumption, boys, after especially a very ugly Monday night loss to Philly.
Right, 24-14, entering the fourth quarter, division game. That's massive. The Lions' injuries, as you mentioned, have been cascading. I mean, they've been missing 2 or 3 offensive linemen this whole season, and then with your weapons, you feel for them. And Lions fans, I guess we're being welcomed into your
den.
Into your den.
There you go.
And this was a painful one. Don't put it on us. I
hope that's not the case.
No one would. They wouldn't, because this has been happening before we came along. But I do, somehow I feel a little responsible that they were up 24-14 in our first game and then have just like a total heartbreaker.
No, I take no responsibility. This team has been losing for like 4 eons. Like we've jumped on, and there is an interesting a team as they've been since we've been born.
It's too bad that game-winning touchdown by Cousins too. It was a confusion.
What? That's not. I mean, there were a couple
true.
Wayne Fonts teams back in the day.
I
forgot
Mitchell.
about that.
Oh yeah.
But this is getting there.
Bad miscommunication in the secondary on
Right.
that winning touchdown. The touchdown. Nobody says it that way. That'd be weird if I did. Jeff Okudah had a good game. He's a guy that's a bright spot. We talked about Rodrigo.
That's huge because he looked like a bust.
But what they did, they shut down Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson got, again, quieted. That's 2 straight weeks after looking completely unstoppable in week 1. So there are definitely positives, because what I really wanted to see from the Lions is growth on defense, because that's when you could really start to buy in. And if they just could have gotten that last stop. But Dan Campbell's right. He should have never went for that field goal. Unless you got Justin Tucker, you should have punted that ball away, in my opinion, pin them, and then give your defense a real shot to get a stop. They're not good enough to make that stop at midfield at this point, and I think Campbell knew it, and he instantly had regrets.
Interesting, because he would have gone for it, right?
Or go for it.
Yeah.
Or go for it. What was the down and distance?
It was 4th and 4 at the 36.
I mean,
so you're in an in-between area where punts are weird.
The Lions have been like one of the heaviest 4th down go-for-it teams in the NFL over the last few seasons.
4th and 4 at the 36? Yeah, that's a go for me. But I
Heavens to Betsy.
It is, Mark. It's a go.
That is not from right now. Just to confirm.
So
Justin Jefferson
Kirk
with 14.
does it again, though. 10 a.m. It's like
that was. We talked about it on Thursday. That was he looked as bad as any quarterback in the league on Monday night against the Eagles, and of course he comes back, and he wasn't lights out tonight. He missed some throws, but he made the one. He's wide open too.
I don't like this Justin Jefferson 14 yards business off 6 targets. I mean, they've got to figure that out.
When you have the year he had as a rookie, and then you're one of the defining storylines of Week 1. Obviously, teams are like all the way zoned in on him, and it's on our friend Kevin O'Connell.
But they weren't ignoring him before.
Remember with the storyline after Week 1? Oh, now he's being moved around, and now we know how to use him to his best abilities. It's like, all right, now what, Kev?
Well, I mean, we were the ones saying that, and you're making
everyone
Kevin
was
go,
saying that. That was like it was one little kick out the door from Mike Zimmer and his previous staff. Like, you didn't actually even know how to use this dude. All right, well, now find a way to adapt to the adapts to the adjustments being made. You know what I'm saying. Let's take a break. All right, we're back. Let us move on. Check in with the defending champs.
It's a jet sweep. Cooper Kupp's got the edge. 20, 10. Cooper Kupp, speed to burn. Touchdown, LA! Did Cooper Kupp score today? It's Sunday. Of course he did.
Oh, that's why J.B. Law is one of the best. Nice line. KSPN. Cooper Kupp with a 20-yard touchdown run. At that point in the game, he was the team's leading receiver and rusher. That's what he means to this offense. And it wasn't a big offensive day by the Rams. Matthew Stafford, in fact, didn't throw a touchdown pass. I don't know if that's happened since he's joined Los Angeles. But the defense, see, a true great team. You can do it on both sides. And they shut down and throttled Kyler Murray. 2012 final. Rams over Cards. Rams improved to 2-1. Cards fall to 1-2. A funky, weird game in some ways. Not the most thrilling game. Not the shootout maybe some of us thought it could have been. Allen Robinson let a goal line pass go through his hands. That could have been a touchdown for Stafford. Kyler Murray threw for 314 yards, but he did it on 58 attempts. And, the Hollywood Brown move is working. Let's start with the Cards, in that he certainly does have that chemistry with Kyler, and he went 14 for 140 on 17 targets. But there was a moment in this game when they were down late by 2 scores, and they took over deep in their own end, the Cardinals. And you kind of need urgency, and you need quick score there to stay alive. And there just wasn't there, Mark. They have an inability to be explosive on offense, and there's too much wait for Kyler to bring magic. Worked last week, not this week. Yeah,
I mean, if you take the 20 minutes or so last week where the Cardinals turned electric, their offense has been a sputtering disaster, lacking urgency. I mean, I think it is a coaching to some degree when you're playing a good Rams defense, except a Rams defense that got flamed by Buffalo and allowed a bunch of points against the Falcons. So this shouldn't have been an invisible spot for Arizona if their offense is for real. They start with 4 punts. None of those drives, 3 of those drives don't go for more than 8 yards. One doesn't go. The one goes for 16. Then you're kicking field goals. Do you want to be a field goal offense, try to survive in this division, in the NFC in general? I just see a team that they started slow last week too. Kyler started slow. The parts around him did, and it seems to just be a problem to get going early and to keep pace with the team. You can't attempt to come back every week, and if you're going to, you can't do it in sluggish nature that we saw today.
Yeah, I think the Rams are just trying to survive this early portion of the season. They were down 2 more cornerbacks on top of their other injuries. They lost Havenstein in this game. I don't know if he returned their right tackle, which would be a massive injury, and it almost feels like they're just kind of warming up into this season, and it's nice if you can get some wins along the way, which they've done. They also got Aaron Donald a sack today, and that's his 100th. He is the fastest defensive tackle in the history of the NFL to reach 100 sacks.
Reportedly a quality player.
Yes. And that's what we were talking about it last Sunday, Mark. I feel the same way after this game, where the Rams are not playing at peak efficiency by any stretch. But they maybe have a quote-unquote Super Bowl hangover, but they've won 2 of 3 here, and they're to start the season, and you assume they're going to get better. One aspect of the game that was getting better and then ceased to be getting better because you cannot fumble near the goal line when you have a chance to ice a game. Cam Akers, he was going to be the highlight. He took over early in the second half and had a great drive where he carved up the cards.
And you were going to reward him. To you, that's one of the most important things you do as a host is reward players with highlights.
Yeah, you got to reward people for achievements and hard work. And Daniel is flying tonight on a plane.
Reward yourself potentially.
Cam
sometimes.
Akers had a 14-yard touchdown run, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? That's nice. The Rams need a running game. And just when you start to feel good about it, yes, he coughs the ball up in the fourth quarter, gives the Cardinals life. But like I said, and Cam and McVay had a moment on the sidelines where it didn't seem like he was headed to the doghouse. It was more like, bro, protect it. We're going to be all right.
Like Belichick would have buried him under 6 feet underground somewhere.
He would be gone. So the Rams, fine, move on, get the W. The Cardinals still very unimpressive other than a magical second half and big-time play in overtime. That's where we're at with this. Oh, and by the way, you get all hot in the pants, Gregg, about Tony Romo and this and that. I only care about Sundays with Sanchez now.
Okay, that's
Marc
fine.
Sanchez is the breakout star for me of the commentator game right now. And he said some funky stuff last week, and it led us to wondering, did he just even admit that he has a joke writer? Here is another Sunday with Sanchez.
I just love his game. He's going to have to change his name to Shakira, man. Whatever, wherever. That guy's ready to play some football.
He was talking about Skwarnek. That's a 22-year-old Shakira single. So,
and it's not even like a hips don't lie reference. I don't even know that Shakira
that was
song.
like
a lot of people.
Yes, you do.
She was a huge star in Colombia and around the world, and then she put out an English-speaking language and had that as the big breakout hit. It was like 1999.
Yeah, but like it's like whatever.
Don't be together.
Yeah, you've heard that. Unless you've been locked in a house.
My hips are mountains.
But the way he said it, like you don't like the words, like the lyrics aren't what you think of when you think of Shakira. And Shakira and Skwarnek don't even sound alike. I mean, it was like that's a stretch.
Well, these are pre-planned bits.
There's nothing. I don't know what's going on.
Certainly a stretch. Whenever, wherever. Released October 2nd, 2000.
You're right. I do remember that song.
I mean,
but it's like hearing Marc Sanchez say the words whatever, whenever, his hips. I don't know. It's just like didn't.
Also, I wish someone for Shakira would have helped her out. She named her first album Laundry Service. That's just not a great album title. But, you know, her career was launched anyway. Oh, we have a lock.
Oh, that's right. I locked it up.
All right, there you go.
I've locked against the Cardinals all 3 weeks.
Really?
Unfortunately, they play the Panthers next week. That's
look at
sort
you.
of,
and you're 2-1.
And it would have been perfect if it wasn't for that little guy, Kyler.
It would have been perfect, too, if it wasn't the guy with a giant helmet and the little feet. Let's move on. Check in with what happened across the street. Bloodbath for the other LA team.
They give us to James Robinson. He's got it in more. 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown on 4th down. James Robinson broke loose for the score.
Yeah, I just realized Gregg doesn't even, because he was born age 32 standing up, he doesn't even know the pop culture reference he just dropped. The Scooby-Doo reference. Gregg actually turned into a bad guy from Scooby-Doo.
Right.
And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you rotten
That was
kids.
the point. That was the point.
You don't know that bit. You don't know that, ref.
Everyone knows the bit.
At the amusement park.
I mean, we know it from watching Scooby-Doo. He knows it because other people have referenced Scooby-Doo. Is that what you're saying?
Frank Frangie of the Jaguars radio network with the call. James Robinson, man, he's looked good all year long coming off that Achilles injury. He ran for 100 on the nose and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence stacking good games now, 262 and 3 touches. And guess what? The Jaguars beat up the Chargers and the beat-up Justin Herbert, 38-10.
Whoa!
And Mark, tell us it wasn't this bad. And by the way, the Jaguars snap an 18-game road losing streak. You know what? I don't like the way I set you up there, Mark. The Chargers will get to. But how about these Jaguars?
I tell you, like Doug Peterson, it's one of the things where it could have gone sideways because all offseason long we sort of guaranteed that they'd be
pissed off, Angelo.
I don't think he is right now. I don't think he is because it's working. Like we said, Trevor Lawrence would be the primary beneficiary, and he is. Like, when is the last time, if it's ever happened, that at one point the Jaguars today, field goal in a row, touchdown, field goal, end of half, it was like one play, touchdown, and just sent the Chargers into another dimension. But now, to be fair, I think number one, 2 weeks in a row, Trevor Lawrence has made major steps. And I think if you watch this game, what I think about him is that he seems to, and it's so clear this just wasn't the case in last year's disorganized attack. He's well coached. He seems calm. He at one point had a rusher all over him and made a calm completion. It's like last year this stuff was not happening. He's got great chemistry with Christian Kirk. James Robinson's running the ball the way that you mentioned. And they were playing a Chargers team that were extremely vulnerable. It starts with the fact that Justin Herbert is playing with cracked rib cartilage, and it shows. I think he doesn't want to. He's not wanting to take the hits. I think his downfield velocity is affected. That said, he had a throw in this game that kind of reminded me of last week after he took the hit and made the incredible completion. But Joey Bosa went out of this game. Kenneth Murray went out. That had a lot to do with zero pass rush and getting run all over. Rashawn Slater, your star left tackle, is gone. Corey Linsley was gone after last week. So your offensive line is reduced by 2 quality players. Keenan Allen wasn't in this game. J.C. Jackson wasn't. So
Kenneth Murray left with an injury. Jalen Guyton. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, so I mean, that doesn't take away from the fact that Jacksonville they took advantage of that and blew the doors off. But this wasn't the Chargers team that we expected to see. And Brandon Staley, this is a bad loss. I mean, I don't care who's injured. Everyone's got injuries. This is just a bad loss.
I think Brandon Staley's lost. How is Justin Herbert playing with 2 minutes to go in this game with damaged ribs that you don't know if he's going to recover from that at any point this season? If you have a chance to get him out of the game and not take any more hits and prepare for the next game, what are we doing, man?
They, responded, Staley did, by saying, Justin, that was up to Justin.
No!
And it's like,
same as last week, it's not up to Justin.
He's like, he insisted he didn't want to let down his team. It's like, you can make decisions on how to handle your best players. That those are important. Now, the Chargers are devastated, I think, after this game for a number of reasons, but you still want them to handle it better. Lindsey Thury of ESPN said the locker room cleared out as quickly as I've ever seen from a home team in the NFL. And she said it was interesting that today's a crossroads for them, how it was handled. Only 2 team captains available after the game to address the loss with reporters. And of all the injuries, and they're really concerning. Joey Bosa with the groin, and Keenan Allen didn't play in this game. They've really missed Lindsey. They're not the same. I mean, Linsley is a Pro Bowl type center. The injury to Rashawn Slater, and we'll get the final word on what it is, but to me it doesn't sound good. That could absolutely change the course of their season. Because if you're starting Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins for a long time or for the rest of the season, it's just, even if Herbert's healthy, it's not the same.
This is the most ominous feeling we've had about any team we've discussed on this show so far.
This season,
ominous vibes about the Chargers right now.
Yep.
For a team that is historically disappointed, there are a lot of breadcrumbs. It's still very early. It's only 3 games.
J.C. Jackson didn't play. That's 5 Pro Bowlers. Literally 5 Pro Bowlers. Let's give the Jaguars just a little bit of love, though. I mean, James Robinson.
That division's theirs for the taking, by the way.
It is theirs. James Robinson has come
right
back off an Achilles better than any running back in my memory. He has made all the difference. Like, Urban Meyer is at home watching this, being like, that guy should have maybe leaned into that guy, James Robinson. That guy's good. The crazy thing about Trevor Lawrence, though, is I don't think did he have to make spectacular plays?
No,
I think
no,
it's nice almost that he's not making spectacular plays 2 weeks, he looks like a system quarterback, and they're building him up because I think the spectacular plays, because of his talent, will come. The fact that they're this good with him just kind of moving the ball with quick throws is a great sign.
Yeah, I don't think they're putting it on him to make those kind of plays yet, but his floor is raised a lot.
A lot. It's awesome.
Good job.
Jags fans deserve it. Among the best fans in the NFL.
All right.
According to Gregg. I mean, I don't disagree, but I don't know how we're measuring that.
So let's move on. Let's talk. Zeus's got work to do on that plane, by the way, because I do the power rankings, and the Dolphins just beat the Bills. And it's like, the Dolphins, are they the number one team?
Are you going to put them over the Bills?
Is that how this works, though? Just because it was.
I got to watch it.
Right, but I mean, I don't know.
I got to watch it, but there's a case to be made.
Yeah.
But
where were they before the Dolphins?
I think 7 or something. I think there is one other team, though, that if I feel like it's too soon for the Dolphins to get that type of love, there's a team in the NFC East that we need to talk about.
I like it.
You're right about this.
Hurts back. Hurts looking. Hurts firing. Devontae Smith touchdown. He caught it in the corner of the end zone. Again, he went skyward. The Slim Reaper. How did they get that off? You know what? They don't have a number 1 and a number 2 receiver. They have 2 number 1s.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, Philly is lit. And Merrill Reese is as caught up in the hype machine as everybody else. But you know what? Hype isn't the right word because we're seeing results. Not receipts, results. Jalen Hurts to Devonta Smith for the touchdown. And once again, it is the Eagles who are just dominating with an easy win, 24-8 over the Washington Commanders, who were down 24-0 in this game before safety. Obviously, they got a tack-on score here to make it somewhat respectable. But, Marc, both sides of the ball humming for the Eagles right now.
Absolutely. I mean, think of what their secondary did to Minnesota a week ago. This game, different units step up entirely, and it's the offense who, at halftime, had 322 yards to 50 for Washington, and that was not with a tilted time of possession. It was essentially even. Jalen Hurts just simply caught fire in a disconnection with Devonta Smith, and it is A.J. Brown who, if you're going to handle one, you can't handle the other, and it is a true pick-your-poison type scenario, and Jalen Hurts makes all of it so much harder to defend because if you're off him, off he goes. And the defense, on the flip side, Carson Wentz, we've seen him go good half, bad half. And so certainly we saw the bad half again. So would the script follow the way it did last week? Well, there was no chance for it to because the Eagles absolutely separated Carson Wentz into about 45 parts with no team's done this. 9 sacks.
Well, that doesn't sound like a Game Pass I want to watch.
9 sacks in this game.
Are you guys interested in a reel of Carson Wentz getting
I asked
sacked?
for this, so yes, I am.
Here it is.
Back goes Wentz. He's looking. He is sacked. They got him. Sack number 1. Wentz back. Wentz pumps. And they've hit him again. Back goes Wentz. He is being tripped up. And there's sack number 4. He's being harassed. He's hit again. They've got him. Here comes the rush. They've got him again. And that would be sack number 9.
I don't know why.
It does.
But it was
mean.
like every 4 minutes in this game. And Wentz certainly is someone who's going to hold on to the ball and walk into a couple of these. We've seen that before.
Didn't look like he had a chance in
what
we just
because
saw there.
I think Washington's line has not been that bad this season. That has not been the story every game. But he did have no chance, and their offense was completely defunct, and there was no comeback in this one.
I want to hear from Jalen Hurts here because one of my favorite quotes of the young season came from Jalen Hurts talking about Devonta Smith, who, by the way, had a career-high 169 yards and a touchdown on those 8 catches. A.J. Brown also had a good day and a touchdown. So, yes, they are humming here. Here's what Jalen Hurts had to say about Devonta Smith.
By the eyes, he may be a little sly, but he plays like a big boy, and he is. When his number's called, I know he'll answer the phone.
By the eyes, he might be a little slight, but he plays like a big boy. He's a guy when his number's called, I know he'll answer the phone.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the narrative after week 1 of whoa, is Devonta Smith going to get lost in this offense? Have you watched Devonta Smith play football? The only concern I ever had is that he stays on the field because you look at him and he is slight, but he's tough despite that. And they have 2 1s. That was a great way to put it. He is an incredible young receiver. everyone hits on early receivers lately, except for Jalen Reagor. Like, you can't miss. Every early receiver the last few years has been amazing, and coming off of that package we looked at of Wentz getting hit, Brandon Graham had 5 QB hits alone. They had 17. They're putting up crooked numbers in terms of QB hits. I've never heard of 17. Is that a record?
I mean, if you have 17 QB hits and then you have the offense playing the way it is, it's pretty much perfect.
It looked like it. There's no overt weakness at this point.
My way too early Week 3 MVP rankings, I got Lamar, Hurts, Josh Allen, 1, 2, 3.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
That would be my top 3.
That is an unbelievable situation they have cooking in Philly. Now, like we saw with the Bills, things change. They will be challenged soon enough, and they will, even go down, and they have to stay healthy. They don't want to be the next Chargers. But where this team is, you get why everybody, including Merrill Reese, is feeling
this is better than I ever could have imagined. But one of the reasons I picked them to win the Super Bowl was because I thought they could get the 1 seed because the schedule is cake. And you look at the schedule ahead, and they're going to be decent-sized favorites until about Week 11.
Yeah, they are well set up to get the number 1 seed potentially, especially with the issues for the Cowboys this year. All right, let's take a break and then roll on. Welcome back. All right. The defending AFC champions don't have a win entering Week 3. What happened at the Meadowlands? Let's talk about it.
Burrow back to throw. Blitz coming. Throws over the middle. Caught by Tyler Boyd. Breaks away. 2 defenders. Sprinting down the middle of the field to the 20. 15, 10, 5. Lunges for the end zone. Touchdown. Bengals on the final play of the quarter as Tyler Boyd pinballed off 2 defenders and took it to the house.
You guys know that's one of my favorite things. I love the partner in the booth who just forgets that he's being paid and is just cheering for his team.
I mean, they are getting paid by the Bengals, so.
Yeah, I mean.
That felt desperate, though. That felt like we're 0-2 and we need this.
Dan Horde and Dave Lapham with the call WCKY. Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It was too easy today. They got the big win, and the offense looked like the offense for the first time in a long time. I mean, even before the playoffs. Burrow threw 3 touchdown passes. The defending AFC champions, they get that first win of the season. They just take out the Jets 27-12. They made some, Gregg, you've taken some pot shots at Zach Taylor in recent days, and I thought he made a smart move. He picked up the black polo and he pulled it over his head and he said, I know we always, when we win the coin toss, we defer to the second half, but we need some more urgency.
Okay.
They win the coin toss for the first time, I think since Taylor's been the coach. They say we take the ball, they go right down the field, they score a touchdown, and that was kind of over at that point. And the score looks like it wasn't a total blowout, but this game never felt competitive. The Cincinnati Bengals were a much better, more complete team, cleaner team, less mistakes, better protection of Joe Burrow. The running game is still a little meh, but other than that, took care of business against the Jets team that, other than a 2-minute miracle there against the Browns, has been bad.
I mean, you talked about the Chargers as the most ominous team that we've discussed. And so tonight, I think you're right. But as of a couple days ago, it kind of was the Bengals because they were in a rough spot. And you're right. I mean, this is a get-right game, and I'm not sure it's a true measuring stick against the Jets team that
just got to get a W.
They have issues, but they came out and did it. I thought Burrow looked good from what I saw. But I am concerned because I think what set them up in weeks prior where they can't soften up a defense is that ground game. And when I see Joe Mixon running for 24 yards off of 12 carries, that is not what was happening last year when they were good prior to the playoffs and in the playoffs. They were dominating teams, especially in their own division, with the ground game. And so I just want to see that down the stretch fix itself, or I don't think this is a Bengals are fine situation.
Well, this is probably Joe Flacco's last start, at least in this stretch of games. Zach Wilson's reportedly going to be ready for next week. There's no reason to think that they're not going right back to him. What were you most disappointed by? Because I'm actually surprised. We talked before the show, and you were pretty down on the defense, Dan. But I look at the box score, and it doesn't look too bad. 5 yards per play for the Bengals. A game where they lose the turnover margin 4-1, I would be, normally pointing more fingers at the offense. But you seem disappointed that Salah's defense, which does look good on paper, and I think it's had moments this year, but it's been a little up and down.
I'll tell you what I like about the defense. Obviously, they did a good job stopping the run this week. Last week against the Browns, not so much. they give up too many big plays. There's too many miscommunications. I like Sauce Gardner a lot, and he played a role in, once again, Jamar Chase being very quiet. He even got in Jamar Chase's head a little bit, I thought, at a point in this game, even though Chase did have a touchdown, 6 for 29. But in general, the defense has been a difference maker. The pass rush does not get home. For all the talk we heard about how deep their front seven is, how Carl Lawson's back, I'm not seeing them taking that step defensively. And on the Flacco side of things, listen, you could argue for a team that's in transition and trying to build. This is kind of fine the way it ended up playing out because there's no indecision here. Flacco cannot move, and more problematic beyond just the Stone Age pony aspect of it is he can't hold on to the ball. Every time this guy gets hit, that ball is out. So in addition to having zero mobility and to make off-platform plays, he is a turnover machine. He threw 2 interceptions, fumbled a bunch of times. It's time to move to Zach and see what he can do. And if he can't, it could get ugly.
You got to find out.
We got to find out now. But good win by Cincinnati. They get to 1-2, and I think they got some of their mojo back too. Let's see if that carries over. Let's now move on to what went down in Nashville. Speaking of teams that need a W.
They get it off. Carr throws short, had it away. It was hit by Cole, and then Byard knocked it down. It's 24-22.
Nice job underneath by Cole. Job by Byard, too. You knew right where they were going with it.
Mike Keith, Dave McGinnis on the call, WGFX. Yes, the Raiders pulled within 2 late, but it was the defense that gets that stop. The failed 2-point conversion is the difference for the Titans, who get that win in the cornered animal game, 24-22 over the still winless Raiders. And I believe there was a report after the game that Josh McDaniels, by the way, now off to another rough start to a coaching career. Although he got off to a really good start in Denver.
6-0.
Before things absolutely imploded. He's going the opposite direction, and I believe there was a report that he had a meeting with a
long meeting with Mark Davis before the press conference. So it's not just like you're going to have this meeting, but we're going to have this meeting in a way that every reporter knows you're having
No bueno. All right, Gravedigger. I know, although bad job by you, Justin, let's be fair. You should not have picked against your team.
Reverse jinx.
Come on. Maybe you learned from that. Ryan Tannehill throws for 264. He has 2 touchdowns, 1 passing, 1 rushing. Derrick Henry finally gets going a little bit. How, in the first game, post-Taylor Lewan losing your left tackle to a knee injury, how are you feeling about them at the end of this game?
Still a lot of concern, to be honest. The defense was allowing the Raiders to pretty much march up and down the field, but it was nice to see the offensive line got some real push in the run game in this one, and that has not been the case the first 2 weeks. Henry had some holes. He was also bouncing off defenders, spinning down the field, picking up yards after contact, just like Derrick Henry that we've gotten used to. So it was nice to see that even without Taylor Lewan, they could run the ball effectively. The pass protection wasn't great, but Tannehill did a good job getting the ball out and avoiding pressure, except for one near-disaster strip sack that the Titans jumped on at the end of the game.
Imagine that.
That could have been pretty terrible. But
Ravers not on the plane if that happened.
I mean, they didn't score in the second half, so you must have been sweating it. It felt very much like the Raiders-Cardinals game, but the difference here is like the 2-point conversion doesn't happen for the Raiders. The Raiders aren't that close to winning a couple of these games.
It felt like the Titans-Giants Week 1 game where the Titans get up to a big halftime lead and then completely do nothing on offense in the second half. And give up some big plays. The Titans' run defense also didn't look very good. The Raiders ran the ball 19 times. They averaged 5.1 yards per carry, but they only ran it 19 times, and that's part of being down by 2 scores for the second half. But the Titans' run defense has not looked good all season, and the Raiders didn't really take advantage of that.
Just be happy with your win.
I am happy, but the Titans' secondary was pretty
Well, I was going to ask you
brutal
because
in this game.
if they were brutal, I mean, Devontae Adams ends up with 36 yards. And then Mac Hollins has 158. I know he had a big 60-yard play in there, but he still had eight catches. I mean, that's not really the script you would imagine for the Raiders.
So Terrence Mitchell, who was signed off the Steelers practice squad by the Titans earlier this week, played a ton of snaps outside at cornerback. Caleb Farley, healthy, played 1 snap. So what does that say about Caleb Farley's development? Probably not good things. But Matt Collins was torching Terrence Mitchell. I mean, he looked totally lost down the field. And Devontae Adams, his usage is puzzling to me because I get it. They're moving him around a lot to try to like throw off the defense or whatever. He's lining up inside a lot. He was in the slot a lot in this game, but when he was in the slot, the Titans would have the nickel cornerback on him, and then a linebacker was like there to bracket him because he kept running these little short routes over the middle and wasn't really that open very often. And I mean, 10 targets, like seeing that he had 10 targets is actually surprising to me after watching the game. It didn't felt like he was that much of a go-to guy for them. And
they need a second guy. Renfro is hurt and hasn't produced. Waller could have caught a ball at the goal line that ended up being picked off. I mean, that's about as big a play as you can have in a game. It flips, the 7 points to the ball to the other team. They remind me a lot of the John Gruden Raiders in that those teams always moved the ball and couldn't finish drives. I don't know if it's a Derek Carr thing or what, but that was a team that could move it up and down the field and couldn't really capitalize.
This Raider, like the whole Raiders thing, this whole offseason, which now I'm peaked and slightly.
I'm annoyed now.
Like they spent all offseason saying like, hey, you're counting us out in this division, blah blah blah. You don't understand who we are, but you're 0-3.
Yeah, come back to us, Raiders. You're the only 0-3 team in the league. And by the way, come back to us, AFC West. You're not that impressive to me either.
Not so much.
The
not
difference
right
in the game was the red zone for sure. Raiders 2 for 6 in the red zone. Titans scored touchdowns in their trips to the red zone. That's what'll do it.
And to what you were talking about earlier, Greg, that's 3 losses to start the season for the Raiders by a combined 13 points, and they had a chance to win at the end of all of those games. But still, the vibes also ominous. Not moribund, but ominous. Let's move on.
4th down and 18 at the 38. Snap, Smith drops back. Atlanta trying to get there. Here's Gino to his right. Going to throw downfield. Intercepted. Richie Grant's got this one. 15, slides down 19-yard line. Richie Grant comes up with his first career interception.
That was Geno Smith throwing the interception that doomed the Seattle Seahawks in a kind of a fun game to watch between two teams that probably aren't going to be dancing. They won't be prancing either, making erroneous injury guesstimates, but they won't be dancing in the playoffs either. But they can entertain us on a Sunday in September. That's how I felt. 27-23, Falcons over Seahawks. Marcus Mariota had his obligatory turnover in the fourth quarter that almost killed his team. But overall, I thought he looked pretty good in this game. Cordarrelle Patterson, man, what else can you say about this man? He's had 141 yards and a touchdown. I hope you didn't have him on your bench in fantasy. I did.
Really? How good is your team?
No, not very good. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, they both make an impact. So the offense of the Falcons continues to be frisky. And when it came down to it, Geno had to make a play there. He could not make the play. So the Seattle Seahawks dropped their second straight.
It was tough. Geno on the move, playmaking, not really a strength. It did remind me of last year's couple games before the Jaguars game where he played pretty well, and then at the end it fell apart. I mean, he had a great game until that moment. 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, was almost perfect in the first half. Both teams are going up and down the field, but he hasn't put together 2 great halves. And as much as Pete Carroll is talking about, like, we got to, let Geno throw more, he's earned it. I don't know if 44 throws is the recipe here for the Seahawks and giving up more than 10 yards per throw to Marcus Mariota. I mean, their defense is a mess, one of the bottom 5 defenses in the league, and having Geno throw 45 times, it's asking a lot. It's asking a lot.
Let me check out this fakakta Gregg Rosenthal tweet 3 hours ago. If you combine Geno's first half against Denver and his first half today, you'd have a beautiful baby. Instead, you have an orphan.
It'd be the baby we talked about before.
I think that was a great tweet. It was like if you combine them, like if they made love to each other. You just had a beautiful football baby born.
But Greg, that's the problem, because that's what you have to do to squint enough with Geno Smith to concoct him into.
You don't have to squint. He's performing as well as you could possibly hope. The rest of the team is not helping out very much. And, they're not going to win trying to throw the ball a million times.
I just think Geno Smith is who he is. And I think he is, when he's protected and things are good, he's a clean quarterback. And I think he's impressed me more than I thought he would have overall. But I think what Pete Carroll and John Schneider were trying to sell to Seahawks fans before the season was Geno Smith will be enough if we can run the ball really well, and that's what we plan to do, and if our defense is competent, and the defense is incompetent, and the running game is
Well, that's a great point, Mark.
Well, it is. It's actually dead on why Geno Smith is crumbling week to week.
Both these teams feel like they deserve to be 1-2, so I kind of like that the Falcons got to win, but
Geno was legitimately very good in the first half in this game.
Yeah.
They just couldn't put it together. And just heads up to Fox, and this goes for all telecasts, the world we live in now, there's a lot of drones out there. And every once in a while, a drone flies into an airspace where it's not supposed to be. And it led to a 5-minute delay in the game. And it's unfortunate. They throw to a commercial break. You use the bathroom or you get a drink or whatever you want to do. Come back, sit down. I'm ready to watch the game. I don't need you throwing it down to the sideline reporter telling me drone update. Don't care. I could guess what happened.
I'm with you, and I find it unnecessary. Like it happened.
Wait, what did you want them to do?
Just move on.
Sorry.
Well, they had to say why, but it happened at a Patriots practice last year. But Connor Orr, our friend, did have an added nugget that the telecast, which I think is adding something to it, said that the drone had appeared over the University of Washington football game yesterday, but then simply went rogue and began flying over the stadium today. Like it wasn't controlled, it just took off on its own. From a technology angle, slightly concerning.
Well, the most accurate tweet, the truest tweet I saw all day was from our friend Danny Jameson, who said this whole drone thing felt like a Marc Sessler sandwich prop that was never made. This was your cornered, Mark. You should have.
Which is why Dan dislikes it, I think.
Right, predicted it to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say Tommy Lee Jones and the Fugitive had it right. I don't care.
Well, I mean,
I didn't kill my wife.
Don't care about that either.
Well, that would be notable.
He is a U.S. Marshal. His job was only, and that was, by the way, improv'd by Tommy Lee Jones. I don't care. That his job is not to decide guilt or innocence of Harrison Ford's character, the great Richard Kimball. His job is to bring him to justice.
You reel him in.
And then you put him, then Tommy Lee Jones goes on with the rest of his day. So what he's trying to tell Dr. Richard Kimball there is hey man, it's not personal. I'm doing my job here.
Well, that's your opinion. I think it's a correct one.
Great movie. One more. Then Sunday Night Football.
Snap back to Mills. Pierce's tip. Intercepted in the hands of Roquan Smith. Tripped up by Mills. Do a dance, baby. Do a dance. The tip pass into the hands of Roquan Smith on the near side. It's picked off. Bears defense turns him over.
Jeff Joniak with the call. WBBM. Roquan Smith. Big pick that seals another Chicago Bears win. The Bears are 2-1 after a 23-20 victory over Lovie Smith, the former Bears coach, and the Houston Texans. Greggy, good job by Khalil Herbert here, stepped in for an injured David Montgomery. And the Bears, all things considered, have to be feeling pretty good about where things are.
Good job by Herbert. Good job by Roquan Smith. Good job by both of these teams serving up a highly entertaining game, back and forth.
We set the over-under at 12.5.
Right, a lot of offense in the first half. I ended up taking this game in the end, and I was thoroughly entertained, and it couldn't have been a more Bears victory. Roquan Smith, who even before that interception was one of these stories of the game. He was absolutely everywhere. 16 tackles in the game, and then making that interception. That's a Bears historical linebacker type of game. And then the running game had to have Bears fans going crazy that they put up 281 on the ground, mostly Herbert, who to me has looked even better than David Montgomery. Hopefully Montgomery can get healthy, but they did not need him today. Running, defense, it was a Bears type of win.
There are teams like this that pop up. I can think of
So it was boring.
No, the game actually really was entertaining. I really was. It was back and forth.
I can think of teams like this terrible 2009 Eric Mangini team that started 0-10, and then they're we can't do anything that modern offenses do, so we're just going to run the ball nonstop. And we could look at the Eagles last year where the Hurts was a different quarterback. You just run the ball nonstop. And so if I'm Chicago, because that is how they climbed into the game with Green Bay a week ago, this 40 attempts for 281 yards at 7 yards per carry, but behind what we thought was a terrible line, not a terrible run blocking line apparently.
Didn't you sense Marc was going to give us the Mangini Browns dropped a bomb on the Patriots story there?
True, yeah.
I thought we were heading that direction.
That was the next season, and that had to do with that was not the same approach.
I was so excited.
But this game would not have looked like that one. That would have not have been a good place to insert that memory that I've used more than 40 times on the show.
I thought it was coming, and I was excited for it.
I'm just saying, if you're a Bears fan, like, you can look at this and say, if they can take this approach, you're 2-1. Who thought they'd be 2-1? Sneak these wins in this rebuilding year and win any way you can. It says a lot about your coaching staff.
Right. This might be
flexible.
This might be the high point of the season, or they might be 3-1 next week after playing the Giants. There are some concerns. Justin Fields looks to me like the most lost quarterback in the NFL. Today was a nightmare. The fact that they won this game with him throwing as ineffectively as he has. A couple really bad picks, and just a couple plays where it just didn't seem like the entire passing operation knew what was happening. It was a little bit of a miracle that they could win despite that. So that part of the equation is concerning. And yeah, they've run it now 104 times, Dan, this year. And doing a little quick math, they've passed it 45. I mean, when was the last time that's happened in the NFL? That's insane.
They know who they are, at least. How did Davis Mills look?
That interception was brutal.
Get me on this plane.
They were inside the 10-yard line.
David Mills was a guy in the crowd, though. I want to know what his experience was like.
I'm leaving. He's like the brother of Brad Pitt from Seven.
He looked like a real NFL quarterback who made a bunch of nice plays, but he had 2 terrible interceptions that.
Did we talk about Dameon Pierce doing something? He looked
everything.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah, Pierce looked great. Mills, they had he had an interception on the goal line where he forced it in there, and it was a bad play by him. I think a nice play by the Bears.
That is why I always do that, by the way. David Mills is the Brad Pitt character from Seven, and it has been in my head for the entire Davis Mills run.
But Mills did that young quarterback thing. He predetermined what he was going to do on that Roquan Smith interception, and he even predetermined, I'm going to look them off, and then I'm going to go back to this guy and throw it no matter what. And he did look him off, but he didn't look to see if it had any effect on Roquan Smith, who didn't bite on it at all, and so it ruined an otherwise pretty good game.
Justin Fields was his own worst critic in this game. He said that he played like trash. So obviously a lot of work to be done on that offense. You want to see them grow as an offense and get more, some offensive fireworks in the passing game. But they've won 2 out of 3, and they get the Giants and Commanders sandwiched by the Vikings over the next 3 weeks. So we'll see where the Bears are at. All right. That's it for us, right?
That is.
That's it.
Yes.
We are going to now sign off, gather our personal affects.
I'm going to go eat at the Huddle. Get some dinner.
Grub, and then head to Los Angeles International Airport. The Tom
Bradley
Benson.
No, see, you're doing what I do.
The David Mills International whatever. Nick Shook is going to take us out here with the Sunday Night Football recap between the Denver Broncos and San Francisco 49ers. And you will hear from us next on Tuesday from London, God willing. Thank you to everybody for watching the stream. Until next week, on to London. Cheerio. Crikey? Nope. Neither.